This episode is sponsored by Shipyard Shenanigans, available on YouTube and on all good podcast apps. Hello and welcome to Film Pro Productivity and Success, the podcast that helps film professionals and other creative people to live a more focused, effective and happy life. My name is Carter Ferguson and this is episode 63, 10 Awesome Productivity Apps with Productivity Matters host Julian Cosky. Hello again, folks, and I hope this show finds you very well. And in last week's show, I looked at 30 ways to combat stress, which is a show that I'd been planning. It had been on the cards right from the start of this podcast, right from season 1, and I never quite got round to it till now. And it's something we all suffer from. We all suffer from stress to a degree, at least. But that show will give you 30 ideas on how you can begin to control it and live with it. And if you missed it, please do go back and have a listen. Today, though, I'm talking to fellow podcaster and productivity expert Julian Cosky, who runs the excellent Productivity Matters podcast, which I can highly recommend. I had a really great time talking to Julian, so please enjoy the show. And here he is, Julian Cosky. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm fantastic, and
great.
For the people listening at home, I want to get it straight in there that we are recording this during the height of the coronavirus outbreak, and we're working from home, and that this is a pre-recorded episode. How are you getting on with all of that?
Yeah, not too bad. Working from home, as a lot of people are at the moment. So getting to grips with that and not seeing people on a daily basis, it's a challenge. It's a challenge, but we do what we have to do.
Have you got any structure to your days? How are you making this work for you?
Well, I do have my day. I do have meetings which are obviously all remote via Zoom or Skype or whatever. And I do make an effort to get out during the day for my one walk that I'm now allowed to do. Luckily, the weather has been sublime. So enjoying to get out in the sunshine for half an hour or so, just to get a walk, get some exercise before I get back indoors again. But yeah, that's how I'm attacking it at the moment.
That's fantastic. Now, I remembered, because I've been recording another show earlier today, only just before this episode, that I haven't done my walk yet. So when we finish recording here, I'm going to hit the road as well. But I know you as the host of the excellent solo productivity show, Productivity Matters. And I also know from doing a little bit of research that you're a scout leader, or you're involved in the scouts, and that you've been working in the business world for many years. But can you tell me a little bit more about yourself and what drew you to podcasting?
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. So I am a club leader, and productivity sort of came out of sort of quite, I suppose, interested in making sure I can get things done easily and more efficiently. That's one thing I found, that a lot of people don't take the easiest path. I think it used to be known as time and motion studies and things like that people used to do back in the day. And I suppose it's sort of born out of that, and the interest in making sure that I do things as efficiently as I can. The podcast really came out of that. And I think I started the podcast back in 2018. And I just was coming up with an idea, and I just thought, let's share productivity. And it started off as reviews of apps. And I sort of built on that as time went on to talk about sort of services and other ways and means in which people can be more productive and get more out of a day.
And it's a great show.
Thank you.
I've not got that many shows that I listen to regularly, and I possibly don't listen to yours as you intend it to be listened to. I tend to listen to yours in batches, because your shows are actually quite short, which might work for you because you're a solo podcaster like I am. How does solo podcasting work for you?
It works very well. I mean, it's certainly nice to talk to you and talk through it. I just find it easy to sit down, and I do tend to write more of a script than I do bullet points, just to help keep me on track. They are short. They're usually no more than 10 minutes long. I suppose that's because that's the sort of podcast I'd like to listen to, especially if it's one voice. You don't want to listen to the same voice maybe for too long without having breaks in. That's not to say I don't like listening to your voice, Carter. It's just that sometimes I find, I don't know, maybe I don't want people to be bored with the sound of my voice longer than they need to. And if I can say what I need to say within that short period of time, then I will.
Yeah, I wish I knew your skill, because I have a real problem with it. I work in the same sort of way as you. I'd say I script it, but it's got a little bit of movement within it where I can kind of go off the rails a little bit, and I think that helps it feel a little bit more natural. But whenever I sit down to do one, like I'm trying to release short episodes this week. This is right in the midst of the coronavirus lockdown in the UK. But like today's episode ended up being 30 minutes long, because at the same time I was trying to keep it short. I wanted to give the audience as much information I could about the topic. Do you have any secrets for keeping it short? I mean, you kind of covered it there, but
I think you should say what you want to say as succinctly as you can. I'm not a professional podcaster. You know, I do it more for fun, more for the love of it than anything else. So, you know, I wouldn't like to say the way I do it is right. I don't think there is a right way. I think that's the beauty of podcasting, is that there's something out there for everyone. So whatever feels good for you.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Is there anything that you wish you'd known about all of this podcasting world when you started out that you know now you wish you'd known before?
Promote. I think is, and I've certainly something that I do a lot now, and we've talked about briefly in the past. It's something that I think in order to get an audience, you need to constantly push the message, and because you're going to be hitting different people at different times. So, you know, I should, and we'll come on to this later, but in terms of what we're going to talk about, but I schedule posts to go out at various different times so that I can hit the different people with different messages, with different podcast episodes to get the exposure.
Yeah, that's something I've come to realise as well. I think that I would agree with you completely on that one. And you also did Napod Pomo, which
I did.
Which I didn't know about until I started listening to you talking about it. I'm like, what's all this about? And I had to go off and research what was going on. I went for a walk with Angus, the dog, and suddenly I was getting like tons and tons of your episodes coming out. I'm like, how did I miss all this? So what was that, and how did it work out for you?
So Napod Pomo, National Podcast Post Month, which was November. It's every November. Mm-hmm. I only really discovered it last year, and I just thought it would be a lot of fun to do. At the time, I was out of work, so it wasn't like I had anything else in the way. And I literally decided, in fact, in the run-up to that, I've been doing mini bite-sized episodes to document my search for a job. So when I saw this, I thought, you know what, I'm just going to rebrand, carry on with it. And I just did 30 days, each day with a different productivity tip. And literally, they were about 2 or 3 minutes long. Now, that may be too short for some people, but they were literally bite-sized. But I wanted to achieve this, doing it every day for 30 days, and I certainly didn't have enough to do a full episode every day for 30 days. But it was fun coming up with the ideas, and it was fun doing it. I used to batch them up, so obviously I wasn't recording every day. That wasn't the goal. The goal was to release an episode a day. Mm-hmm. So I used to batch record sort of at the weekends, a week ahead, and then to schedule those to go.
Well, it was pretty amazing. It did blow my mind. I couldn't imagine. As I say, I've got a problem with making my episodes perhaps overly long anyway. But actually, it blew my mind that you'd managed to get like 30 odd days of content together. Yeah. But no, those short ones really worked very well because, as you say, you can make the point without giving a whole load of examples, perhaps like I do, and simplifying what it is you're trying to tell people. And I think it helped me get the message on a few things. So I feel like I should be handing you a medal or some sort of thing. All I can really offer you is a well done. Now,
thank you.
In a minute, we're going to be talking through a few productivity apps that you're going to be recommending. We're going to be chatting about that. But what common mistakes do you see people making when it comes to choosing and using apps and websites, etc., to help the productivity?
That's a really good question. There are so many apps for every different type of task and job that you want to do. So, and you're right, finding the right app is a problem. The one thing I would say, the one piece of advice I would say is find an app and stick with it. There is a real danger in switching between apps that you actually spend more time learning how to use an app than you actually do in getting the job done with that app that you've got. So my one piece of advice would be, once you've found something that works for you, make it work for you. Don't it's almost FOMO. There are so many apps. It's almost a case of what's this one do? And admittedly, I do that because I like to look at the apps, but I don't let that take over, and I don't tend to use them day in, day out for, sorry, take that back. I use them day in, day out for a very short period of time to learn them so I can talk about them. But in terms of my day to day, I use an app, a single app, and I will just make that work for me, unless there's something fundamentally wrong, or it breaks, or that there's a problem with an update and it stopped working. But app switching can be the death of productivity because you spend more time playing with the apps that you've got rather than actually making them do the work for you.
Well, that ties in completely to the episode that I recorded earlier today, which is about this is where I have to remember what the episode I've just recorded is about. It's about information overload or information pollution, whatever you want to call it. You can honestly, in today's society, there's just so much stuff out there that it can turn into white noise and you can get lost in it. And I certainly recognise that I am less keen to learn new things. And if I've got too many things on the go, I probably won't even try to learn them. I do like to find something that works for me and stick with it. And it actually does bother me quite a lot when, for example, Twitter have changed their home screen on both the app. Sorry, it's not both the app. I don't have the app in my phone. It's just on their browser. On the browser, the app, the positions of the buttons are different. And the reason I've not got it on my phone instantly is I'm trying to wean myself off of Twitter. If I want to go onto Twitter, I've got to jump through a few hoops on my phone and get to it through the Google Chrome app. But I don't like it when even within an app that I'm used to using, they move the position of the buttons. So I really wouldn't be able to cope with learning too many new things.
No, you're right. Changing positions on the website that everyone uses, it can be quite dangerous as well because people will just stop using it. So I'm sure there's a lot of testing that goes into it, but when you know how to use something, it's the inertia.
Yeah.
You go to look at something and then it's not there anymore.
I've got this problem with technology and stuff as well. If I've got a camera I know how to use, the chances of me picking up the newer and better camera are slim when it comes to something important because I'm already kind of ingrained in the use of something else.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've taken that off in a complete sideways direction. Today we're going to be talking about apps, and
surprisingly,
I've got a list of them in front of me. Would you like to introduce them, or shall I? Or how would you like to do this?
So I put this together as an order, and hopefully they sort of work together. And the first area I was looking at was task management.
Yeah.
Why do we have task management? What is the reason for it? It can be very overwhelming. Now, obviously, we're looking at it. Maybe you can look at it from a business perspective. You can look at it from a personal point of view, where you've got things you need to do on a day-to-day, in day-to-day life. So there are tons and tons of applications out there for task management. And I was just going to talk a little bit through why we do it, what's the importance of task management, because our brains can only cope with so much. And one of the big things that I've learned is to write it down, get it out of your head, put it somewhere that you know you can get to it later, whether it's on a pad, good old-fashioned notebook, or whether it's in an app. Once it's out of your head, you can concentrate on doing it rather than remembering what it is you need to do. And that's, for me, is where task management app comes in. Now, I use Todoist, and I have used Todoist for the last 18 months or so. Yeah, kind of approaching 2 years. And for me, I pay for it. I've got the paid version. It's about £28 a year, I think. I don't think they've changed the amount. But again, I'm the sort of person, once I go into an app, I go into it wholeheartedly. Sometimes the free versions are just enough, but sometimes you want that extra little bit because you just get that more out of it.
Yeah.
And Todoist for me is my tool of choice. It helps me to manage priorities. It helps me to see what I need to do on a day-to-day basis. I have it integrated with my calendar so that things that I need to see there are all in one place. So, yeah, Todoist for me. There are others, obviously, as I said before, available, and Microsoft have their own To-Do. Google have their own. So if you're in the Google universe, then they have their tasks system. Microsoft have To-Do, and there's Things 3. I mean, there are just tons.
And I should say as well that you're an iPhone user. And
I am, yes.
I'm an Android user as well, so we can give different angles on this. I also use Todoist, and you've already mentioned one of the best things for me about it, which is that it integrates into the calendars. And I use Google Calendar on Android with Todoist, the free version, and it appears on the calendar. It's fantastic.
It is. I mean, the good thing with Google integration is it's two-way. It's a two-way synchronization.
Yeah.
So you can actually mark it as done within Google, and it'll mark it as done within Todoist. And it doesn't do that with all the other calendars. That is a very good point within Todoist and Google Calendar.
Well, Google Calendar's got some little glitches which bother me, I've got to be honest, but the fact that Todoist integrates into it is just fantastic. Yeah. And you mentioned earlier about writing stuff down. There's a percentage which I keep talking about on the podcast, and I think it's 42%. You're 42% more likely to do something if you write it down than if you just think about doing it. Came from a study at some point.
I can understand that. That definitely. It's a habit of mine now. If I need to do something, I will get it into Todoist just to get it out of the way.
And you mentioned that you've got the paid version of this. What do you happen to know offhand what the difference is? Because it seems to serve me on the basic version.
Yeah, and now you've got me. Labels and multiple different labels. It depends how you use it. So I could probably review it and think that I don't need some of it, and maybe next year I won't renew the paid version. I don't know. I can't remember off the top of my head.
That's okay. I did completely drop you in it there, so I apologise. But it's the thing is, you're only talking about £28 a year, and that if it's making a difference, if it's making your life easier, then it's got to be money worth spending.
That's it. It's all in the value, isn't it? It's how you perceive the value. If you break it down over the course of a year, it's it's a couple of quid a month. It's not a fortune.
Absolutely nothing, really.
Now, I also have this belief that sometimes we should be paying for what we get, and free is fine, but somebody somewhere's got to make some money out of this in order to continue to do the development.
Yeah.
And sometimes I look at it in that magnanimously, pay them my money because I want them to continue doing what they do.
I get that as well, and sometimes I'll just pay for a version of something just so that I get a more stable version. This has happened to me with various softwares in the past. I've paid for upgrades and things like that to get the latest, most stable version rather than something which, can crash quite often. I'm talking about a specific program which I had in the past, so I won't get into details about that one because it's too off topic. But I think paying the money. This is a conversation I thought we were going to have maybe a little bit later on, because you pay for a few different resources that we're talking about today, don't you? Or one or two, is it? I pay for... Yeah. Well, I won't go into it. In fact, we'll just wait till we get to it. But the next thing you have on your list is Evernote.
Note-taking, and generally note-taking apps. Again, a notebook is just as useful. But I use Evernote. I've been using Evernote since about 2011, so I've been a long-time user. They've been going through a rough period, maybe an understatement for some. Some people will maybe think Evernote it's been quoted as being in a death spiral, and they have had their moments. I'm not a big fan of the iOS app at the moment because it doesn't seem to behave quite the way it should. On the other hand, when it does work, and on the app and on the Mac and on the web, it really does work beautifully. And the search functionality within it is second to none. And also the web clipper. So, and I don't know if you've ever seen the web clipper.
I'm aware of it. I tend to just drop things into Pocket these days, but I did use Evernote for a brief time. And for whatever reason, I don't remember at the time, I kind of enjoyed using it, but whatever I was doing at the time, whatever job I was doing, it didn't require it, so I never really went back to it.
Sure. I probably, use it every day for work. Certainly it's there. I'll jot something down, or I'll take notes during a call or a meeting with someone. There's a good couple of thousand notes. I do purge every so often because there are things in there that I don't need. The searching, the way it can actually read inside documents as well. If you're searching for something, it'll pull out all the documents that contain it. And the web clipper, when you're on the internet and want to save something for research, then clipping it into Evernote directly is ideal.
So how does that work exactly then? Sorry to interrupt you, but how does the web clipper actually work then? Can you note what you're grabbing?
It'll grab what's on the screen, and you can either grab the whole screen, you can just grab a section of it, you can add notes to go alongside that before you save it, and then it's literally saved an image of the page. There is a link to the page as well, so you've got the URL to click back into to go back to the actual site. But it's really handy. And obviously, you can have tags and put it in particular notebooks. So if you're researching a specific subject, you can get everything you need, put it all in one place.
I'm just thinking that I should probably be doing this for these solo podcast episodes that I do, because what I tend to do is just work from a Word document and open up. I've got 3 screens in my office here, and so on one screen I'll have Chrome up and I'll be doing my research in there, and on the middle screen I'll be writing from it. But it might be more sensible for me to do a sesh looking for the content that I can draw from, and then just working from that instead.
Worth trying. Evernote isn't the only app out there. I'm going to say, do I pay for that one? Yeah, I paid for the Plus version, and then Evernote gave me an offer to upgrade of a stupid £11 for the year to go for the full version, so I did. But the full version gives you the search functionality, which I cannot stress it is, I suppose, the industry standard, or it should be the industry standard for searching. It's really, really good. But there's Microsoft have their own. They have OneNote, which is also very good. I don't get on with it. I've tried it a number of times. They use it where I work now, but I cannot get on with it. It's just I don't know why. There's nothing wrong with it as a product, but it's just not something I can work with. There are others. There's Bear. And do you know what? I've just gone blank on what I was going to mention. But there are a number of note-taking apps.
You'd written Google Docs down as an option, or is that a separate thing?
Google Docs could be used for note-taking. That was more online collaboration.
Yeah, sorry, I've misread the notes that you sent through. So Google Docs is. This is my preparation. This is what happens. I prepared everything by highlighting and underlining the titles, and I've just read the next one as being part of your Evernote section, so sorry about that. But now that I've inadvertently stumbled into Google Docs, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So this was all around online collaboration and working with other people to pull together documents or work on work together. Now, I use Google Suite of Docs, so I use Docs for Word documents. Sheets is there. A version of Excel for spreadsheets, and Slides is like PowerPoint. So I tend to use those for myself, and as we mentioned earlier, for the Cub group that I run the Cub Pack, and when we plan out our annual camps, our camping trips, we use that and we can work on it together. So I can share those documents with other leaders. They can add their thoughts and comments, and we can come up with a program and do everything we need to do. And again, that's free with a Google account. So and it doesn't cost. So Google gives you 15 gigabytes of storage as standard. And if you use their Google suite of products, then they don't use up any of that storage space.
Yeah, that's good.
Unlike a PDF or another Word document from somewhere else would use storage. So, but having said that, Microsoft is the next big one, or is the big one. I don't know which way around you want to look at that. And they have 365 now, which is their online version. And again, has all the functionality of the latest versions of their applications. Some would say there's too much. Microsoft Word is such a beast of an application. I use a minute amount of it. We use it at work, and I use a small amount of Word or even Excel. We just don't use it, and sometimes think it's over-engineered. But who am I to say?
Well, I would agree with it, because I think I spoke to you when we did our pre-record chat earlier, or the other day there, that I use the Office Suite 2010 because I bought it back in 2010. It still works. And I don't want to mess with it.
Absolutely. If you don't need anything more, then that's fine. That's one reason why I like Google. It has a huge amount of functionality, but it's almost buried unless you go looking for it. So the interface is clean. It's fairly straightforward. I just find the Microsoft one, it's got the ribbon at the top. I know you can hide the ribbon before anyone shouts, but it is there, and it does look very, very complex. Mm-hmm.
And Google Talks, though, that you were recommending there, the big thing for me about that, and it's occasionally I work in other countries, and the fact that you can collaborate with people within the doc, and you can I can leave notes effectively on the doc. Sometimes I'll get sent like a script breakdown or something like that, and I don't want to change the writer's words, but I can just drop in notes for that they can expand and read each bit without interfering with their creativity, as it were.
Absolutely.
But that collaboration's really useful.
The other beautiful thing about Google is they have their Google Forms, which, again, I use a lot of, and they link directly into Sheets, so you can get people to fill in all sorts of information. If you're asking for information regarding, certainly from a camping perspective, then I can gather all the information about the individuals that are coming along, and it all goes automatically into a Google Sheet. So I've got it all in one big spreadsheet as opposed to individual sheets of paper. Yeah,
that sounds amazing. I think I've had to do that maybe just the once for some sort of similar thing. You know, we get asked because of new money laundering laws when we work on any new production. They're always asking for a vast amount of information about your life, and at least once, possibly twice, I've had this. You call it Google Sheets, Google Forms. I've had to do that, so I must look into that a little bit more, because I have occasionally got to pull together information if I'm doing my own projects, and it is a bit of a task to try and get everyone's information from them by sending out like a form that I've made up myself in Word, for example, and asking them to fill it in. It can be a real drag. So you're saying that within the Google Suite, they can draw the information from that and put it into a new document? How does that work?
So Google Forms, it's almost like a survey. It's almost, you have a list of questions in the form of a form that customers, people, whoever fill in. And then when they submit that, you can then have that collated into a spreadsheet. So each line each row within the spreadsheet is that information, with the heading at the top being your questions.
I'm definitely going to have to look into this, because that would save. I know the amount of time I spend collating information, specifically contact sheets. And I think it might be worth me investing some of my valuable time in learning a bit more about that one.
Definitely, it's a tool that I use very frequently.
And the thing is about Google, and do they still have what's the FaceTime thing that Google has? Hold on, I'm going to try and call it up.
It used to be Hangouts.
Hangouts, has that been dropped along with, or is that still there? Because I always thought that was very powerful.
I don't hear about it as much.
I'm just going into Google myself right now to have a look.
Have a quick look now.
Hangouts is still there. So Hangouts was another amazing thing that it had, because you could Hangouts is like a kind of FaceTime, and what was amazing about it, and I'd imagine it still does it, is that you can save the FaceTime you've done to YouTube, because Google owns YouTube. So you could have, like, we could be having this conversation online, you could have an online meeting and it would save it to YouTube. So that's another part of the suite that comes free.
Yes.
But anyway, I've gone off piste again. You see, I've got a habit of doing that. Next on your list today is something I don't know much about. I've watched a really cool Stephen Fry voiced trailer for it, but it's Sparkmail.
Yes, I do love Sparkmail. This is a good example of an app I found because my previous app wasn't doing it for me. So email, obviously, there are lots of email applications out there. Gmail is probably the biggest, most well-known. There's Outlook, Hotmail. Apple have their own mail app if you're an Apple user. And then there's lots of other what I would call independents, such as Mission, Edison, Airmail. I used to use one of those. I wouldn't say which, but I fell out with it. It wasn't updating. I wasn't getting emails through as quickly as I would have liked. Things weren't synchronizing well. So I found Spark, and it's available on iOS, Mac, and Android. It's got a great, really clear interface, and it has integrations with lots of other services. So it's integrated, for example, with Todoist. So I can have an email that's come in, and if it's something I need to do something with, I can actually put that email in Todoist, and it will appear as a task for me to do at a later stage. You could say you could just pin it and leave it, but then it's sitting there and it's in my face all the time. I don't really like that. You can share it with Google Drive for attaching documents when you're sending emails. You can integrate it with Evernote. I mean, it does absolutely tons. One of my favorite features with it, and again, this comes back to the Cub Pack that I run, is you can create templates. And I've not seen this. I think the only email service that comes close, I think, is probably Gmail, where you can create canned responses. Yeah. But this one is actually one way you can create a template of an email. You can have a number of placeholders within them that you can then update with the information specifically for what you want to send. And then you can, it just makes it so much easier then to either reply to an email that's come in or to send a bulk email out to a number of people at the same time. That to me, and I've actually looked at others to see what else there is out there, but nothing else that I've seen offers that functionality. And it's completely free for personal use. I think there's a charge for team uses within businesses, but certainly free for individuals.
I think I'll definitely have a look at that one. The interesting thing is if you can send emails to Todoist, one of the things about Todoist is it'll hassle you to get it done if it's on there. Whereas you could forget about it. I tend to just leave it and mark as unread in Gmail so that I can, at a glance, see the things that I've not dealt with. But I kind of like the fact that Todoist hassles me.
And a lot of people do use their email as a to-do list. That's one way people do their to-dos. They'll have an email, they'll have their to-dos in email so that they work through those. But again, email, it's a tricky one. It's been around for so long, we've got used to it, but it's not designed to be responded to immediately. I think the problem with email is you either deal with them there and then or deal with them within a week or so. But if you haven't, and there's tips for managing emails, is delete emails that are older than a week if you haven't read them.
Yeah.
Just get rid of them. If somebody is after some information from you and you don't reply, the worst that will happen is they'll ask you again, or you've replied and it's done and dealt with, and then you can delete it or archive the email out. And the other thing is we get bogged down with all the mailing lists that we sign up to, whether we like it or not. When we buy something in a shop online and then we get emails from them regularly, our inboxes fill up with mailing list subscriptions that we've said, yes, send me some emails. And I find it extremely cathartic at the end of, 6 months, every 6 months or to a year, I'll go through and unsubscribe from mailing lists. And it's a wonderful feeling. And your inbox empties like there's no tomorrow. And you don't have anything coming through and sort of, creating noise.
It's the too much information, the information overload thing that I was talking about earlier. And I do suggest that you go in and unsubscribe to things within it. At the moment, I thought I'd unsubscribed from an awful lot because I did a big kind of mailbox clear out, I think, in January. But at the moment, everybody and their Doug is sending me messages because of the coronavirus thing. And saying they're going to help. And I must have got like 20 emails today saying the Royal Bank of Scotland is going to help you. This is the information, and this is what we're doing. And I'm getting like, oh, please stop. In fact, just before I started this show, I think I deleted. In fact, I know that I deleted like 20 emails that had come in just today.
Yeah, and that's the problem. There's too much. It creates noise, and you're spending more time being distracted by that than getting on with what you really need to do.
Exactly.
The other tip I was going to say on emails is put time aside specifically to deal with them.
Yeah.
They're not supposed to be dealt with immediately. If it was urgent, somebody would phone you about it. So set some specific time aside in your calendar, an hour in the afternoon to go through emails and just move them out of your inbox, deal with them or delete them. And that way you can manage your time much better rather than dealing with them as they come in.
It's an absolutely brilliant piece of advice. But moving on, Fantastical 2. Tell us about this. And I know you've done episodes about it. Tell me about it.
Fantastical is only available on iOS and Mac, so which is a shame because it is a truly stunning calendar. It's just beautifully written. It's a great user interface. It looks good. It works really, really well. It integrates with, it works for all the main calendars such as Gmail and Outlook or what have you. So it's Yahoo. So it is really good. And I've used it for about 4 years. And I did an episode recently, the fact that I fell out with Fantastical because they launched Fantastical 3 and they decided that they were going to charge an annual fee for Fantastical 3. I wasn't happy about that because it's £38 a year, not a one-off charge. It is an annual fee. And so I decided I'd have a look at Apple Calendar to see if I could get along with that. And I tried. And eventually I have to hold my hand up and say I went back to Fantastical and I have paid for it because there's nothing else like it. I don't get paid by them, by the way. This isn't a paid promo, but it really is very, very good. It just works well. Having said that, Google Calendar is very good. Apple Calendar is very good. There's nothing wrong with them. They do the job they set out to do. But yes.
Well,
how do you find it? What do you use Google?
I use Google Calendar. It's on all of my devices, and it's on my phone. I've got the widget for it, so I actually see like a full breakdown of what's coming up as well. And these sort of things, as you'll be well aware, only work if you really use them. People that kind of half use them are never going to get the benefit of the reminders and stuff. If something important comes up, it's got to go into the calendar, and the best way I find to do that is to get it in right away. Like, for example, today I tried to do an order for Asda, and the first slot that I can get for a delivery from Asda is 9 days from now. So I made my order for that to come in. Obviously, this is the Asda website was down since late last night to this morning, and I kept on logging in and managed to get access this morning. I put in that order right away, but that order's coming between 8 and 9 on something like the 3rd of April, and it's currently the 25th of March as we're recording this. If I didn't write that down in my diary, I'm sure I'd probably be in, because we'll still be self-isolating by then, but I might be very surprised that it's turned up, and I think, I don't know if you would agree with me, but if you don't fully commit to and use these calendar apps, then they will not be able to help you in return.
No, absolutely. You need to use them to get the most out of them. Definitely.
Well, they're just great things. I've got a slight problem, as I said earlier, at the moment, in that for whatever reason, the phone app is not fully syncing with the desktop app, and that's a problem for me, because while I'm out in the field, as it were, I'm obviously using my phone to put in calendar dates and stuff like that. But when I'm at home and writing risk assessments for these fight sequences that I'm getting asked to do, sometimes it's missing out important dates. So I need to get to the bottom of that one. There will be a solution. It'll be something that I've not ticked, I'd imagine, but
I'd recommend Googling it.
I have Googled it. No, it's one of those things that it's just not been able to fix in the hour sessions that I've given. I've given it a couple of hour sessions. I don't know quite what's going on. I've done everything that appears to be right. It's not working. Maybe I just have to go back to doing the old thing of reinstalling the widget or whatever in the phone. But either way, it still works brilliantly. Now, next up, we are talking about a favourite of mine. It's Pocket.
Yes, Pocket for reading articles, or offline or online. Why do you like it? What does Pocket do for you?
It's there's a few reasons I like it. One, it syncs between all of the devices that I've got, so no matter where I am, I can drop something in, and I can pick it up on the desktop specifically at some point later on, usually. Also, what else can I say about Pocket? This is a little bit cheeky, but if I go and save a website in Pocket that has got some sort of lock on it that stops me copying text, if I read it in the Pocket app, I can copy the text from that. This is it's about quotes that I use in the show specifically. And some websites have got the I don't know how they do it, but they lock the page so you can't copy any text from it. And Pocket unlocks that lock. That's a little sneaky thing that it does that I really enjoy as well. But I've got at the same time, it's got a problem for me in that it can give me information overload. I drop things in Pocket that look interesting, knowing that maybe one day I will look it back up again. But the reality is it's absolutely chock full of stuff that I never came back to as well. Yeah, what about yourself?
Need some time aside to go and purge all of that.
Yeah. What about yourself? Why do you like it?
I use it a lot for news. I do have, and this is a bit geeky, but I use, we're not sort of one to talk about now, but I use Zapier, which is a sort of automation software that I use. It's by the web, but I use that to pull in any blog posts from specific email newsletters and then puts them into Pocket for me to read. So I'll get the email from a company that has a link to a blog, and it will literally pass that link into Pocket so that I can then go to Pocket to read the blog. It's it is a bit of a geeky one, but it's quite fun, and it's a great way of getting articles in there to read that I might not necessarily do because it means sitting, clicking on links and going to them. Pocket's available everywhere. It's available on all platforms and the web. I use the extension too within Chrome to save articles. But Pocket's a good one.
Yeah, me too. And the other great thing about Pocket, unlike a favourites section or bookmarks section, is that when you go into Pocket, it gives you a preview of everything that you've saved, so that at a glance you can quite quickly find what you're looking for. Whereas if I'm looking in my favourites or whatever they call it, I can be hunting for a while before I find the thing I'm actually looking for.
Absolutely. Yep.
So there you go, folks. Pocket, it's awesome.
We should make a call out to be paid for all of these promotions. Anyway.
Yeah, exactly. We want some money for this. Next up is another favourite of mine, but I'll let you talk about it, and it's Buffer.
Yeah, Buffer. So Buffer's a social media planning and scheduling tool, and I use this a lot. I use this every single day to make sure that it is full with the posts that I want to go out. There is a lot of functionality available if you pay the big bucks. I don't. So I use let's say the bare minimum. I do pay for I think they call it Pro. I can't remember. It's around £100 a year. But that gives me the ability to schedule up to 100 posts. I don't do that many. 100 posts per social media app. So for Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn if I want to. And it just helps keep the buffer full of posts and keeps me continuously promoting my content, or usually my podcast episodes, across Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. There are some analytics as well, which are fairly basic, but again, they show me how many people may have looked at it, liked it, shared it. So yeah, I use Buffer and make sure it's got something in there every day.
I think I use it probably in a very similar way, although at the moment I'm not putting out posts every single day, but I also pay the same pro version that you're using.
Yeah.
And that allows me it's really, really great when I'm doing things like taking a month off social media, because I can still post every single day onto social media when I'm off doing other things, and when I return it's almost like I've not been away, but I've had a good rest. But I've got 4 accounts on there. In fact, the free version of it, you can do I think 3 accounts and 10 posts, is it? For each account.
That's right. Yeah.
And I used that for at least a year, probably a little bit more than a year. And just every 10 days, I would go to it and take an hour and 10 days worth of posts out to promote, usually to promote the podcast like you do as it goes out. And it's just a really, really useful tool. There's other ones obviously as well. Like what's the one? Hootsuite does something similar.
That's the other alternative. That Falcon is another one, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
It's used quite a lot. I can't think of anymore.
I can't think of any more either, because Buffer does it all.
Yes. Thanks, Buffer.
Thanks, Buffer. Give us some sponsorship.
Bank account details are at the bottom of the show notes.
Exactly. And actually kind of connected to Buffer is, and it's the one that all the graphic designers out there don't want us to talk about, it's Canva.
Canva is very good, and again, it saves me from going insane, because you can easily create artwork. You can repurpose it for various posts onto social media in various sizes. Again, there's the resizing tool which they use, which is great, but you do have to pay for that. That isn't part of the free version. And again, it's another £100 a year. It doesn't come cheap, this stuff, does it? But it's definitely well worth it. So I can create one single graphic for Instagram. I can resize that into a Facebook post, which can also be then resized into a Twitter post image and be used all over the place. But I've used it for other things as well. So you can use it for leaflets. I've used it for posters. You can do all sorts. It's grown and grown over the last year or so. There's so much in there. It's definitely well worth looking at if you're into doing social media design.
Yeah, I find it absolutely amazing. I use the free version, and I cheat a little bit. I don't resize anything. What I've started doing, and anyone that's following the current series might have actually noticed, is I only make square images, because the square images will fit on all of the different social networks specifically.
Yeah. Yes, they will. Yeah, they will.
But it's incredible, because like if you're putting out a new episode of the show, you just go into the old saved version that you've made for the previous episode, you change the wording a little bit, and you hit export, and then you've got a new version for the new episode. Then the next episode comes along, you go in, change the wording, change the image, and so you can just get your personal branding becomes very consistent using Canva, and it does look very professional.
Absolutely, it is, and it makes it so easy.
And you mentioned there that you used it for leaflets. I also used it, and I used it for postcards to promote the show.
Yeah, Yeah, you can use it for anything. It really is a very versatile piece of software.
So definitely, folks, go check out Canva. It's totally awesome. I will, of course, put all the links to the stuff we're talking about in the show notes. But moving on, let's talk about Money Dashboard.
Yeah, so a little bit of a curveball with regards to productivity. So this isn't really a productivity app, but I just thought, given where we are in the world at the moment with everything that's going on and people tightening the belts and we have no idea what's going to happen. So Money Dashboard is a great tool for budgeting and to tie up all of your accounts in one place. They can automatically refresh using open banking for the majority of accounts nowadays to get the latest figures from each of your accounts. And you can see on a planner, you can put in all of your expenses and your income, and you can actually chart where you're going to be month on month on month, looking forwards. And it really helps to keep track of finances. And you can set budgets as well. So Money Dashboard is one. I have done a podcast episode about this quite some while ago, actually, but it has really helped me to keep on top of what I'm doing. There are a couple of other alternatives. There's Yolt and there's Emma.
Okay.
And I'm going to say I don't like those because they try and sell you utilities as well, and I'm not into that at all. Money Dashboard make their money by selling anonymized data from people who use their services to finance businesses who can then build products around what they know people are doing. But then it's certainly not personal data, but it's anonymized from all the data that they've got. But they're not trying to sell me gas or electric or telephone or broadband or whatever. So, I'm happy for them to make their money by using my data. And then I get a service that actually is free.
Yeah.
But it has helped me in no end. So I don't know if you looked at it or you've
I've looked at it.
Anything similar.
It's free. I've downloaded it onto Android, and automatically it offered up a whole load of options on bank accounts it can easily sync to, which included the banks that I've got accounts with. So I get caught up in this is a crazy week for me because of the I've decided to advance the release of my of this season by like 2.5 weeks. So I kind of just had to briefly look at it and get a vague understanding of it before I spoke to you. But I'm definitely going to go into that one and have a look.
Yeah, highly recommended.
Yeah, well, fantastic. And honestly, I need to do some shows about money and about finance. I think it's something that is on a lot of people's minds, but that we don't maybe give it the time that we probably should. So that's an important one for me to go into. So let's end this discussion at the moment with LastPass.
Yeah, this is a huge favourite of mine. So LastPass specifically, but more specifically is the online security, the aspect of looking after yourself online. I'm a huge advocate of it, and I totally believe that as people, we're responsible for taking care of our own passwords and our online life. We don't leave our house and not lock it. We don't leave our car unlocked or our vehicle unlocked. We always take care of our personal possessions, but our online life is probably the same, if not more important, because of how much is in there. We spend more and more time online. We spend more money online than ever before. And I just think people find it scary because there are so many accounts and they tend to use the same password across them all, which is such a bad thing to do, simply because if somebody gets hold of your password for one account, it won't take them long, if they were that inclined, to then start looking around and finding all the other accounts using the same password.
Yeah.
And the most important password is your email, because your email is your door to, it was almost like a doorway to your life. There's so much in there. So I created, and I'm going to promote this if you don't mind, Carter, but it's my 8-week email course, which is completely free for people to follow, to basically find out how to improve password strength and how to take steps to making life online more secure. And LastPass does that for me. I've been using it for, here we go, about 10 years.
Wow.
And again, there are passwords in there. I don't know what the passwords are. It generates them for me when I create a new account, and it logs in for me when I go back to that website. So there are things I don't even know what the password is, and nobody else does. So I only need to remember the password to my account, and it really is fact, my 14-year-old son recently told me how he now uses it to manage his passwords.
Well, it's definitely one I've got to look into. I mentioned it in the pre-show chat, I think, as well, that I had somebody at 1:04 a.m. on 2 days ago tried to log into my email account from supposedly Venezuela, but I'd imagine they were using some remote service to do that. And I've definitely had problems in the past, particularly when my website, my fightdirector.com website, was on WordPress, with people constantly, or people, it's probably bots, but constantly, never-endingly trying to log into it. And I'm talking like thousands of attacks. And they would come within a space of 2 or 3 or 4 days, and it's just some sort of automated effort to hack into. God knows why they wanted access to it. It was just some information about fighty things, but trying to desperately kind of hijack, I suppose, my website.
Yeah, it's important that we do what we can to stop that or prevent that from happening.
Well, thanks very much.
Two-factor authentication to go along with it.
Two-factor authentication, yeah. That's getting a text, something like that, at the same time as you get an email?
So you can, some sites send you a text. So two-factor authentication is where you use something else other than your username and password to log into a website. Okay. And more sites do this now. And when you log in, you'll either have to get a text from the company to enter that number in, or you use an app on your phone to generate a code that you then enter. And because you have to have your phone with you, and the person who's trying to log in as you won't have that, they won't be able to access it without getting that code. And there's biometrics as well. Some laptops will have fingerprint logins, for example, or on your phone with Face ID. That's almost a similar sort of thing. It's just an extra form of security. And if it's there, you should use it, in my humble opinion.
It's definitely one of the most useful things, the biometrics on my phone. I've got a Samsung S9, and the fact that I can just put my fingerprint on it and access these, my bank accounts and stuff, that life gets a lot easier using something like that.
It does.
So can you just tell us how people can get in touch with you? Tell us a bit about your show as well, and where they can listen to it.
Sure. So my show, Productivity Matters, is available everywhere. It's posted via Anchor, is my publishing site, but that pushes it out everywhere. So Apple Podcasts, Google, Pocket Casts. So I've not got them all in front of me now, but everywhere. Spotify, which owns Anchor.
I'll put links in the show notes.
Sorry?
I'll put the links in the show notes.
Please do, yeah. And then obviously you can also get to the podcast via my website, which is productivity-matters.co.uk, and then Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all the usual social places.
And what's your handle on Twitter?
It's @ProdMatters.
Excellent. So just before we finish, I wanted to ask you, what's the main productivity technique that you use in your day-to-day life?
I think I said this right at the beginning, is write it down. Get it out of your head. Whatever it is you need to do, write it down. Even if it's on a scrap piece of paper or in a notebook or in the app, put it somewhere that you can refer to it at a later stage. Spend a few minutes every evening going through all of your to-dos for the following day, and make sure you've got enough information so you know what you need to do. But write it down, get it out of your head, because the minute you do that, you can continue without worrying that you're going to forget what it is you need to do.
Brilliant. And is there anything else you want to share with the audience?
Well, we mentioned it again, is the app switching. Don't play with apps. Find an app you like and stick with it. Don't waste time messing around with other apps. Don't fear that you're missing out on something great. If what you've got works for you, then stick with it.
Julian Cosky, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Absolutely brilliant. And as I said, links to Julian's show, Productivity Matters, and all of the apps that we discussed there, and to Julian's course that he was talking about, will be available in the show notes. If you need a call to action this week, then simply choose one of those apps. If you think one of them is going to solve a problem for you, that is, and just give it a go. I'm already trialling a couple of them myself, and they really are excellent. I'd like to give a quick shout out to Rhoda Clark of Hermione's Edge Wear for posting a screen grab whilst listening to last week's episode with a link to the show in a post she made on Twitter. Rhoda is at Rhoda Wear, that's RHODAWEAR on Twitter, and is a great, fantastic, in fact, supporter of the show, and I'm really glad that she's getting something out of it as well. And if you'd like a shout out like this in a future episode, then please just do the same. Just while you're listening to the show, screenshot your phone or grab it off your computer. I think Rhoda took a photograph of her computer on her phone and posted that. And if you post it with a link to where your followers can listen, that just helps me to promote the show, and it's as simple as that. If you do that, you get a shout out in a future show. There you go. So I'm back on my own again next week with a solo show where I will be looking at rejection and resilience. And this is something that creative people have to deal with a lot. So I feel that it is an essential topic for this podcast to handle. It's kind of come in already on the mailbag episodes, and I've not really dealt with it head on. I remember there was a question that was so complex I couldn't quite cover it all. So it came in on that, but also, if you've applied for funding ever, you'll be no stranger to rejection. I'm sure screenwriters that listen to this are constantly rejected, actors are constantly rejected, crew, or you might feel like you're rejected. There just might not be a space for you. And so what I'm really going to be looking at next week, beyond rejection, is resilience, how we keep it together when these rejections come in. That's the focus of what I'm doing. In the meantime, I'd like to once again thank Julian Cosky for giving us his time and his knowledge today. And I'm going to end with the words of American computer scientist, inventor and programmer Steve Wozniak, who said, "It's a lot easier to think of an app and write it than it is to convince people to want it." Now take control of your own destiny. Keep on shooting, and join me next time for Film Pro Productivity and Success. The music that you can hear right now is Adventures by Ahimitsu. You can view the show notes for this episode on your app. Probably the full notes are going to be there with links, etc. And if the links don't work, go to filmproproductivity.com, the official website. You can follow my personal accounts on Twitter and Instagram at fight_director, or follow the show on Twitter at FilmProProdPod, or on Facebook at FilmProProductivity. Please support the show by subscribing, spreading the word, and leaving an awesome review.